Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down all the trades I took this week. We ended up taking 4 trades. I'm going to be breaking down every single entry, how I managed it, and the analysis behind the trade. Hopefully this video will give you a real insight into what a week of trading is actually like. All these trades were super simple using pure price action. I really hope you guys find some value in this video. If you do, please like and subscribe. Let's get into it. So as you guys can see on the journal over here, we had 4 trades, 1 very small loss, which was almost break even, and then 3 nice wins. And we ended up just shy of 40 pips and very good week in the end. It was very simple. So let's break it down and we'll get into these trades. So the first trade we took was on Tuesday. And if we look at the charts over here, let's go over to the 4-hour to start with. Now, obviously going into Tuesday, we were very bullish. We had a big bullish bias, but that doesn't mean we can't take sells, especially when we didn't start seeing entries above the 4-hour resistance. So this was the level heading into pre-London where I said, if we can break above, I'm happy to start looking for buys. But what ended up happening, if we go down to the 15-minute, is we created some resistance up here on the 15-minute, and then pre-London, we just dumped. We didn't get an entry opportunity, so we waited and did feel a bit of FOMO in here, if I'm 100% honest. It was tough to sort of just let this big trade go, but after this breakout, we just pushed straight away. And in hindsight, I think had it been a bit later in the week and this wasn't my first trade, I would have been happy to take it, but it just seemed a bit unnecessary to try and go so much against bias. So what ended up happening, price pushed all the way back down to this 4-hour level over here, which was 4-hour support, and then we broke below this previous 15-minute level over here. We marked that 15-minute level. We also had a little 15-minute level over here. So the trade was taken based off this 15-minute breakout right over here. So if we just mark this 15-minute breakout, we can see we closed below the previous level. What I wanted to see was I wanted to see structure being formed and then a closure below this next 15-minute level. So we went down to the 5-minute time frame, and this is a great tool we can use when we have small levels like we saw that 15-minute level to the left, but we've already had quite a nice breakout. So if we look at the 30-minute, we can see here that that 30-minute close was very nice, and we had clean range to the left. So we had the 30-minute breakout and we had clean range to the left. The only thing we had to think about was this 15-minute level and the fact that we had no structure. So if we look at the 5-minute, we basically had this massive push down, which was, how big is this? 40 pips. So for me to take a sell straight away on this 15-minute close over here, I technically need to have 40 pip stops, 50 pip stops, because price could push back all the way and this sell could still make sense. It could come back all the way back to this previous structure before continuing down, and that would be a good trade. But I wanted to see structure form on the lower time frames and a closure below this 15-minute level. And we can see on the 5-minute, we got exactly that. So you can imagine we had the 30-minute breakout here, then we had the 5-minute create this head tail structure, which if you guys have been watching me, you'll know it's one of my really good confirmation that price is continuing. When we have the breakout and then price creates this retest structure where it rejects the previous level of support or resistance and closes outside. If you then break the lows, good chance of continuing down. Okay, and that's exactly what we saw in the 5-minute time frame. Entered as we broke this candle low after the breakout, and we can see we pushed down a little bit, but the trade still made sense. There wasn't really heaps of room to manage this trade. It's either stop loss or TP over here, because going break even doesn't really make sense because we have such clean range. So I just waited to see if we can get the volume, and we ended up getting the volume, but we had to be quite aggressive with this TP because it was so much against bias, right? So I knew going into this trade, all we're trying to get is about a 10-15 pip move, and that's exactly what we got. So that was the first trade, very simple, good to get in after feeling like I missed out on this, but nice patience and just waiting for the right opportunity. So the next trade we took was also a small win, about 1% gain. We got 10 pips in the end. And this was, again, very simple. We had that bullish bias. And if we break above this 4-hour level, 4-hour resistance, we have a good shot of continuing. Look at all this clean range to the left, clean traffic for price to drive through. Then go down to the hourly, and we can start seeing the hourly sort of creating support over here, creating support, breaking new highs, creating support, breaking new highs. And then what we did was we broke above this level on the hourly. So we can see over here, we closed above on the hourly. And if we look to the left, we have clean range to the left. So I'll mark this hourly level right over here. And this was based on a 15-minute breakout, but I managed it based on the 1 hour. Because we had, if we look at the 15-minute time frame, we can see we had this 15-minute breakout right over here. So we created structure, then broke above. And I put my stops wide because we had that option for the hourly breakout. So I used the hourly breakout as my stop loss, and that allowed me to manage this more patiently, because as we can see, the next 15 opened up, entering on the break of the high, and we rejected sort of nothing here. We just sort of rejected out of the blue. But because we had that hourly stop loss below the previous hourly low, we had time, right? Unless an hourly closes back below this previous candle, back below this previous level of resistance, it doesn't make sense to close the trade. So I held on for about 50 minutes of drawdown. So you can see 15, 30, 45 minutes. And then on the last 15 minutes of the hourly, we ended up pushing. I went aggressively break even as we filled this wick to the left. So as we filled that wick, I went break even, and then we pushed about 10 pips where I closed, I believe, do we have 15 minute? Yeah, so I closed around, there was a 30-minute level right around here. Okay, and I closed about 11 pips there. So very simple trade, probably the trade I'm the most happy with over the week, because it took a lot of patience, and I'm very happy with how I managed that using the 1 hour time frame to make sense of it. Okay, because it's very easy to say, we had a 15-minute breakout, we failed, let's close this trade. But because I had that hourly stops, I trusted the higher time frame analysis, and we can see it ended up working out really nice. So the next trade we took was on the same day. It was just late in New York session. It was based on the exact same thing. We had the 4 hour breaking above this previous level that we talked about, and we expected price, if we broke the high, to simply continue. That was essentially what the trade was based on. Very simple. And if we look at the hourly, we can see we're just sort of doing the exact same thing. We're creating structure, holding that structure, and then breaking and creating new highs. And that's all this trade was about. It's a shame that we didn't see the volume continue to push straight away. And I think this is something I can fix going into next week, is I sort of, because this was taken at 10:30 EST, which is 12:30 AM my time. So I was ready for bed, and I was sort of mentally checked out for the day. This opportunity, I don't want to take a loss. No matter what happens, I don't want to take a loss. Because it's so late, because we already had this sort of trade that was in a lot of drawdown, and I was a bit mentally drained for the day, I don't want to take a loss. So I'm going to aggressively manage risk here. So we had this 15-minute breakout right over here. And if we look to the left over here, above this level, we had clean range. So we had a 15-minute level up here, which we could drive to. And if we look at the hourly, we had an hourly level right over here. So this was why I managed very aggressively, because we had that hourly level about 3 pips from our entry. The only reason I was still confident taking it that close to an hourly level, because if we look to the left, in the past, the 15-minute has driven through this level multiple times. So you can see drive through, no problems. So it drives through, no problems, until you get to this 15 level. So I thought we had a good shot at least to that 15-minute level if we had volume. But as we can see, we pushed to the 1 hour level. We pushed to the level, that's all we can really expect price to do. If we don't get volume and we start rejecting, I'm not going to take a loss. So what I did was I used the 1 minute. We pushed to this level. If we don't get the continuation, I'm not going to take a full loss. So I trailed my stop sort of very aggressively using the 1 minute candles. And yeah, unfortunately we got stopped out. Just had that one more liquidity grab before continuing. In the end, I'm not too annoyed at it. I think, you know, if it's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because if this pushed and we ended up rejecting and going all the way back down to this stop loss, I would have been pretty pissed, right? Because we had an hourly level there and we had an opportunity to manage risk and we didn't, right? We had an hourly level and we rejected it, but we're still holding on. It doesn't really make sense to me to keep holding on to that. When we rejected, we had already come down and grabbed liquidity and we had structure. There wasn't really a reason for me to see price go back down below this previous low. So that was the management on that trade. And unfortunately, as soon as we got stopped out, it continued nice 10, 15 pips. But yeah, very happy with that trade. We went half risk on this as well. So it was pretty much a break-even trade. Very, very small loss. The last trade we took was probably one of the most simple trades you'll ever see in your life. We literally had 4 hour creating support over here, create support, and then we had resistance. And if we break above this resistance, good shot of continuing, especially because we have such clean range. If you go down to the 15-minute, you can see over here, we had a nice level of resistance, 15-minute level resistance. If we look to the left, clean range. So clean range, at least up to this level over here and potentially all the way up here. Clean range for price to drive through, especially if we get that volume. And heading into pre-London, what do we see? We see this big range. We had a nice liquidity grab in Asia. And then all of London, pre-London, we range. London open as well, we range. And then just after London open, we push up And although this is a bit out of the high volume time, because we haven't had a push for the session, there's a good chance we're going to get a push. So we broke out just after London Open. We had clean range. As soon as we broke these 4-hour highs, I entered. Stop loss below previous candle. I've closed partials at this 15-minute sort of noise level over here and closed full as the hourly was closing. So ended up about 20 pips total. Very simple trade. Not much else can be said. All right, so that's it. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys can see that none of these trades were extremely special, right? We had small wins and we kept our losses very small, managed risk really well, trusted our higher time frame analysis. If we look at the daily, all we really did in GJ this week was we pushed up, created a high, came down, found support on Monday. And as long as we can keep sort of breaking new highs, especially with the 4-hour where we can see we kept creating support, breaking new highs, all you got to do is just look at the 15-minute, 30-minute or hourly, whatever floats your boat, and enter on the breaker highs. Won't always be this simple, but when you have volume, and especially because we had such clean range to the left, which happened during the intervention from last week, we have a very good shot of continuing if we break highs, which we saw this week. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. Please feel free to ask any questions. I'll see you guys soon.